Good morning, I'm Frank Powers, and this is Lifestyle Tucson, the program where I speak to our neighbors, the people behind the scenes of our amazing organizations, small businesses, and nonprofits. Our friends are informing you how they serve our community, and they are here to give you updates on future projects. So let's make some new friends today. The United States Chamber of Commerce's mission is to fight for the interests of business and free enterprise before Congress, the White House, regulatory agencies, courts, the court of public opinion, and governments around the world. Sounds great in practice, but what do a bunch of people headquartered across from Lafayette Square in Washington, D.C. know about Grant and Alvernon? Much like my produce, I prefer my regulatory agencies local, and the Tucson Metro Chamber is our membership-based business advocacy and community development organization that represents 1,500 businesses employing more than 160,000 employees in Tucson and Pima County. Founded in 1896, the Tucson Metro Chamber is committed to being the connector of leaders and influencers, a catalyst for business growth, and a champion for a stronger community. They do this through advocacy, events, and even a radio show. The Business of. This radio show, a podcast even, that showcases members of the Tucson Metro Chamber. A different topic is discussed each week from a business perspective. Let's not just get down to business, let's get down to the business of, because today I'm fortunate enough to speak with the hosts of the Business of, Melissa Rociano, Communications and Marketing Director of the Tucson Metro Chamber, as well as arch frenemy Zach Yentzer, Vice President of Business Advocacy of the Tucson Metro Chamber. Bippity bap, entire intro. Okay, here we go. And there's Melissa. Melissa, how's it going today?
Hi, Frank. How are you?
I'm doing really well. I'm glad that you're here sticking around. And then look to my left, there is Zach Yentzer. Zach, how are you doing today?
I'm good, my frenemy. How are you?
These are my good folks over at the Business of. And they'll be coming on after
It's
me.
an inside joke.
It's not so inside. Me and Zach Yentzer, we've been going at it for years. That's how we do it around here. A light friendship, a lot of contentious, what did you call it? What did you call frenemy? That's
Frenemy, you're the best. You're the best.
But it's really a good time to have fun with you guys here hosting the Business of. You come on every single day after Lifestyle Tucson at 7:30. And you guys have been up to a lot of good stuff, but I like to do the new year where we kind of do a recap. We did one last year, and that was interesting because it was all about you guys kind of starting and doing it for, a few months. And now it's been like, all right, you've been doing this a long time. And there's some big news with the Tucson Metro Chamber. Tell me a little bit about this Sun Corridor merger. And again, don't look at your notes. Hang on a second. Zach, out of the way. Give me those. Hang on. Give me those. You don't get to look at your notes. Zach, give me those. You don't get to look at any of those. Tell me as a person, if you can, how do you feel about the merger with what happened with Tucson Metro Chamber and what is it, the Sun Corridor?
Sun Corridor Inc.
What does that mean?
Corridor Inc. Yeah, I'm personally excited about it. And we've talked to a lot of community members, and the overall feeling is excitement. And the best way that I've figured out how to explain it is that Sun Corridor is our economic development organization in the region that reaches out to the world and says Tucson's a great place to bring your business. If you're looking to relocate, we'll help you make that easy. And then the Tucson Metro Chamber helps businesses that are already here grow and thrive and expand here. So the vision was, what if all that was happening under one roof? And we multiplied people, we multiplied resources. Could we have a larger impact going forward? And I just appreciate the bold leadership of both boards, of both CEOs of organizations. It's a big step that doesn't often happen in the region to combine organizations, but our boards have authorized it going into 2025. And I think it will empower our advocacy. It'll empower our ability to shape a great region for business here in Tucson and Southern Arizona.
That was with no notes? That's his response?
No notes.
Pretty damn good, I gotta say.
Pro.
This is what my friend said to me. He's like, it's like the big business place merged with the small business place, so now they're going to take care of all the business. Right? Does that seem good?
That's the vision.
That's
all right.
the vision,
That's the vision.
I love it because I love a team up, and that's super important, and I really love that that's what you guys are doing. We're going to get into a little bit of the facts of like how this came about as I ask the next thing. All right, Melissa, what do you think about the merger? I'm pretty fascinated by this whole thing, and I always love when people come together, and we've talked about other organizations on the Business of where they have had like a merger of groups. It's a hard thing to do, but it really is a better strength in numbers thing. Sometimes in this town, the left hand doesn't know what the right hand's doing, and all these organizations have the same goal.
Yeah, so you're right, Frank. We've definitely mentioned that before. That is a common theme that we've heard from folks here in Tucson, that there's just a lot of programs, although amazing programs, some of the work does overlap. One of the benefits of this merger that we really are looking forward to is, hopefully reducing some of the programmatic duplication and maybe any confusion, and just bolster the resources. Two heads are better than one, right?
Yes.
And the chamber has always been an advocate of collaboration, having these groups come together, and I think it's just a testament to our leadership of them, saying, well, let's practice what we preach. Both organizations are very strong right now. And I always have to clarify this to folks. This isn't like an acquisition, merger, acquisition, very different. Mm-hmm. You have two entities that are very strong right now. They're doing amazing work. It isn't to do with any financial issues. It's really, okay, we're good. How can we be better? And that's really what it comes down to. We're going to still focus on the things that we have. We're going to still focus on small, large businesses, but now we just have those additional resources that each organization has and putting them together.
Heck yeah. Many hands make light work, as we all know.
Yes.
So getting more friends and more teammates involved
Mm-hmm.
in your organization is super important. But let's now take a little bit about, maybe we'll talk about the Tucson Metro Chamber and all this later on Lifestyle Tucson. Maybe we'll get Michael Guyman in here. Maybe we could all have a nice chat about the Tucson Metro Chamber. But as far as I'm concerned, this is an episode about the business of.
Yeah.
I like talking about producing your show, which is on every single Sunday at 7:30 after Lifestyle Tucson. So make sure you keep on listening on all these great Arizona Lotus stations to get all the info about all the people in our community and about the faces behind the places. That's what I like to say about Lifestyle Tucson and the business of, is that we really do learn a lot about the folks that are running our organizations. But now let's go back to Zach and learn about some of the people talking about these organizations in town. All right, Mr. Zach Yentzer, back to you. Let me ask you this. So now you've been hosting the business of over a year, doing all this thing. We talk about this stuff after the show, and that's kind of sometimes my favorite part when we have a little get-together talking about it afterwards. What is your favorite thing since hosting the business of and talking to all these great organizations kind of nonstop? What was your favorite moment kind of the last year?
Man, that's hard. That's hard to land on.
Just be honest. See, this is why no notes for Zach. He's got to be a person. What's one of your favorite things?
Interviewing Kim Adair.
The thing that just happened.
And Felipe Garcia on the same day.
Yeah.
Okay, I got it.
Go ahead.
I got it. That is hard to nail down because we've really had some incredible guests. And I think the growth in the folks who are listening to the show and interacting with it bears that out. I remember a moment earlier in the year we were talking with the staff from Big Brothers Big Sisters, a great nonprofit in town. And we have about 120 nonprofit members in the chamber, so we certainly have a lot of conversations with a diverse array of private businesses, nonprofit, government, but got to have a conversation about how important it is for our community to sow into the lives of our young men and women here. It's important for workforce. It's important for strong families. It's important for our businesses. And I just remember that being a very warm moment that we got to share in this studio about how important that is. Other conversations like the one with Kim Adair was fantastic. Felipe Garcia. I mean, there's just so many fun ones, but that was a very warm and touching moment that we got to have with a guest in studio.
No, that was actually a very, very good one because talking to those organizations are really important. I got to have them on Lifestyle Tucson as well. Big Brothers Big Sisters, the Boys and Girls Club, some of these groups and helping out kids in town. Super important. And it is really nice because it gives me a bit of hope when we talk to these organizations and watching you two really talk to some of these great businesses and business owners. It does. It gives you hope for what we've got going on in our community. And props to you guys. I saw your Spotify Wrapped. And you're on the, look at that. You're on the uptick. A lot of percentages, a lot of new listeners.
Yeah.
A lot of growth.
It's been a lot of fun. Can I drop two more that I just thought of, Frank, that were fun? Misael Cabrera from the mining school at the U of A. That was a gem of an episode. And I know our conversation in this community around mining has a lot of people who feel strongly on both sides. I thought he did a great job storytelling how important it is for so many of our future goals as a community. And then Tucson Water. That was a fun episode. Talking about the future of our most important resource in the Southwest and what Tucson Water is doing around that. So
yeah, and good to learn we have plenty of water.
The more you keep me on here, Frank, the more I'm going to remember all these fun episodes. I actually have to head out.
What?
I know.
What are you doing?
I know.
I'm trying to do a very special recap episode for Lifestyle Tucson, thinking back and reminiscing and giving you lots of compliments. So what?
I know.
You just have to give me all the
Frank.
compliments.
Sounds good.
I have to run
All right.
to.
What was that actually? Did he say something? I'm like, Zach, why don't you get out of it? I'm just going to kick him out, all right? He's not quitting. He's fired. Get out of here. No, I appreciate you.
It
Give
was
me a
good year.
handshake.
See you next year.
That's right. Give me a handshake.
Frank,
I appreciate it.
you. The work you do is awesome.
I'm trying.
And the work you do helping our show be the best it can be is so appreciated. And so much of what makes it great is you in the background in ways that people can't see, but appreciate you so greatly. And hope to be on your show again soon.
Well, you are on it right now, so that's the point. But anyway, we'll have you back
I'm
again.
leaving,
Yeah, well, we'll see if the invite comes to you. But 2025, let's get with it. But let's talk to Melissa more. All right, good. Get out of here. Yeah, that's right. All right, so enough Zach Yentzer for a bit. Thank goodness. I could use a break myself. But it's me and Melissa, the real brains and the looks of this operation. Zach ain't got nothing going on.
It's me.
So, Melissa, I really do want to ask you the same question. What is your favorite thing over the past year, and technically year and a half, because you were doing this before Zach showed up and hosting the Business of now for about a year and a half, I believe. How have you felt? Now it's a year and a half of you being a host.
That's crazy.
You've gotten way better at it since we all started, right?
Yeah.
And again, not that you're ever all that bad, but it's really good to see you get more comfortable, have you guys get a little more casual with it, and just have these nice, genuine conversations with folks.
Yeah.
That, again, as a producer, I do get to see the fun, natural stuff that sometimes, gets a little edited out on the radio so we can talk about our professional numbers and things. Who are some of your favorite guests? And I'll ask a follow-up after that. So who are some of your favorite guests of the Business of in 2024?
Oh, that's a hard one. They were all really great. One of my favorites, and we had her on a couple of times, was Katia Jones from the Women's Foundation for the state of Arizona. Aside from just learning about the new things that are happening with the foundation, I love her as a human being. She's just awesome. We vibe so well. It's, and you've been doing this a lot longer than I have, so sometimes having certain guests, depending on the topic, it can be a little strenuous and, you have to kind of reach a certain time limit, but it's always been really seamless and easy with her. So that's always great. And honestly, some of the most recent ones, with Kim Adair and Felipe Garcia, I've been big fans of them personally for many years. So being in this position to actually meet them and have really close and intimate conversations with them, I feel very, very lucky, extremely lucky. So those are some of my favorite ones. Even some of the episodes that we had when referring to some of the propositions that we were focusing on.
I will applaud that, actually. I learned a lot.
Okay, same.
Yes.
Right?
Didn't you?
Yeah. So that is probably one benefit that I didn't expect to gain when I first joined the chamber and started hosting the show, was really getting different perspectives, because we get an array of people on this show talking about the work they do, why we should support this or not support that. And, as a chamber, we're always very bipartisan. We always want to focus what's best for business. And, there have been times when I've been sitting here and listening to a guest who, outside of the chamber world, maybe in my personal life, I probably wouldn't have a conversation with them. And I had a very narrow perspective or viewpoint of what they must believe about something. So having this as sort of a neutral ground to hear other sides, it's educated me a lot. And I feel like my views on things have sort of shifted to maybe be more on in a middle place. And yeah, I think that for me, I wish everyone could get that experience.
Yep.
As you know, sometimes life can get pretty divisive. Our country can be pretty divisive.
Well, and that's been the year we were just in. This was an election year.
Yeah.
And what a contentious time it's been in our country for a decade when it comes to elections.
Yeah.
And it's not just the fact that, yes, we're all sitting here and it's an election. Like, no, you actually had to work on it in a way, researching all the propositions that go into our thing. And it was a thick book of propositions, wasn't it?
Wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Using the Business of's guide and being able to produce the show week after week and then watching the graphics that the Metro Chamber would put out to help everybody figure out what they're doing. It really was a great resource, and that is something that people don't realize is out there. Sometimes people complain and yell at a cloud. Old man yells at cloud, and it's like, if you actually did pay attention, the information's right here at the place that it is on in The Simpsons. You go down to the town square. Everybody's supposed to go, like they do in a cartoon, but cities don't exactly behave like that when sometimes they should.
Yeah.
I know that one of my favorite things about producing the show has been exactly that, is watching you all interact with all these folks, meet people, and maybe the term isn't shifted perspective, but expanded our perspective.
Yes, that's a good way to put it.
I feel like I just have more of a bird's eye view.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, because, we've said this before, some of us, myself included, we think we have all the answers. We think we know, this is, easy. This is the path we need to take to this goal. I don't see why we're not doing it. And, listening to these other perspectives, you're like, oh, that's why.
Right.
It's not, it's going to impact these people in this way or this group in this way. And there's so many different avenues that can go down that people don't always think about. They think, oh, I'm just going to pay attention the last week before we actually have to fill out our ballots to actually research this. And then I'm going to understand all of it. I'm like, no, you really should invest much sooner than that.
Yeah.
So you have a deeper understanding of all aspects of what this decision is actually going to do to everybody.
Yes.
Because honestly, you can't always make everyone happy.
It's impossible.
Yeah. So, yeah.
They say ignorance is bliss, but it is not. Because that's why you wonder, why is this? Why is that? It kind of makes you spin around when you don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
It's like feeling lost in a compass, right? It just spins around when you can't find that magnetic north. And that's sometimes how I feel when we talk about these big topics. And again, I'm just a nice fella with a lot of things. And I do have kind of a childish perspective with how the world actually works sometimes. And how really learning about certain things, we're like, well, why can't it just be this way? And it's because there are real criminals.
Yeah.
And why can't it just be that way? It's like, because poverty is real. And talking about that. So let's talk about one thing that we often do talk about, and it is the heavy subject that repeats itself and has been growing, and it's homelessness. Your show and my show have talked about homelessness a lot, and discovering that all these organizations might have the same goal, but they certainly don't have the same path to get there, because they have a lot of different, what I feel is misunderstood perspectives about one another.
Yeah.
Some of these groups are like, we're fighting homelessness, but we're a bunch of business owners. We're not fans of the religious organization fighting homelessness because they do this. No, they don't do that. And then the religious organization has a way about the way they do things, and then they're misunderstood. And not enough of them are talking, because they have preconceived notions of how these other organizations run, and running an organization takes every bit of your time. So I do enjoy how we've tackled homelessness, but also learned a lot about homelessness, because I feel that we have gotten a bit more of that bird's eye view of it. And I will say this, and I've said it before, but I don't know if I've said it on here. I've mentioned it on here. I am going to, in 2025, if not in 2026, but in 2025, I'm going to actively try with you two, with the Business of and the Metro Chamber. In Hawaii, they had an event called Reimagine Homelessness.
Okay.
And it was a summit. And I believe, and here's just me, I swear to, should it be me doing this? I didn't sign up for this, but that's the thing you learn about dealing with nonprofits. A lot of nonprofits, quote unquote, didn't sign up for it. It's a mom that had a sick kid.
Exactly.
Right? Or it's someone that lost a pet, or it's someone that lost a son or their veteran father.
Yeah.
And then they start something, and it turns into that. Should what I consider myself being like wacky host, silly guy on the radio, right? Should I be the guy in charge of starting a summit? Hey, you know what? There's nothing wrong if I'm the one that gathers all the sticks, and then I help, and then light that fire, and then we build a camp around it. Because I believe I have that perspective, and I get a lot of it from producing your show, but talking to a lot of my guests. And I think that me, you, Zach, and some other folks in town can really make an event happen where we try to discuss homelessness together and actually try to, dare I say, solve some of it. We can't solve all of it because that's solving alcohol addiction and fentanyl addiction. And there's other factors here.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? But there's a group of homeless people that can be helped. They're not drug addicts. It does still exist. They're veterans as well. And that's another thing I've gotten out of both my show and your show. I have stepped up and I've started helping veterans a lot. It really has given me a bigger perspective. And the thing about my show and your show is what I'm trying to do is just inspire action.
Yeah.
Even if it is buying tickets to that Arizona Bowl or going to support a local restaurant or mostly volunteering somewhere.
Yeah.
Right? I feel that volunteering is a cure for a lot of things that are wrong with a lot of people. You get out there, you make new friends, you help people. It just feels good.
Expands your perspective.
And it expands your perspective. And a lot of people could use some expanded perspective. Tell me a little bit about what you feel that you've gotten out of what you do when it comes to, I don't know, something that has made you grow, like my opinion on homelessness, or my opinion on helping these veterans. What have you gotten a little more involved with since starting the show?
One thing, and I wouldn't say it's necessarily something that I've grown to care about, but back to, what I was saying before, where it expanded my perspective, and I've mentioned it on the show before that I have a pretty extensive history in nonprofits and doing community work. And that's kind of where my heart has always been, to serve the people in this community. And with that being said, having that sort of servant's heart, for lack of a better term, you can sort of get stuck in this mindset of, oh, we need to help these folks over here. And, and we'll use, individuals who are unhoused. But you sometimes get this weird twisted mentality of like, oh, if someone else isn't equally as passionate as I am about this group of people, then they're just wrong. They're just wrong, right? And so something that sort of made me shift my perspective in thinking was a somewhat recent episode that we had with Josh Jacobson, and it was referring back to Proposition 312. And, listeners can go on to the podcast and listen back to that episode. But it was an interesting perspective because Josh, he's a business owner. He also has a law enforcement background. And, at the time, I sort of came in with this assumption that Josh was, and I said this to him on air too, I feel like folks like myself or anyone else might sort of assume that someone like Josh is going to come in just thinking about business only and sort of ignoring the fact that some of these folks that are being mentioned in a proposition, like folks who are unhoused, they completely ignore the human factor and all the other different, nuances that come with being unhoused, whether it be from addiction or, mental illness, whatever it may be. And it was so interesting because then he took a moment and shared some of his own history where, that addiction has touched his family in a very close way. So he has that perspective. He's not just coming at this issue from this side. He understands, like, yes, for Proposition 312, we're trying to hold our elected officials accountable, and not so much accountable, but, making sure that we're actually following through with what we've promised some of these business owners in terms of keeping their property safe and presentable, so they can still operate. And yeah, I'll be the first to admit that I think I might have even had some form of judgment of like, he's not going to have a full perspective. He's just going to have the mindset of only a business owner, only someone who has the mindset of law enforcement. But I was very wrong. That was honestly one of, I would say, in like the top favorite episodes of mine.
Wow.
Just from a personal perspective because of what I got out of it. I, after I finished that day I went home and talked to a close friend of mine. I was like, I was not expecting that. I was not expecting this person to be like, actually, I have history in this. I've seen what addiction can do. I've seen the impacts, and this is why I'm saying we should support this or not support this. And he really had a holistic perspective on it. And it was nice to be humbled in that way, to be honest.
Yes.
So I would say, it like I said, it's not something that I learned to care about more, but it really taught me, I guess for a lack of a better phrase, don't judge a book by its cover or come in with these preconceived ideas of how the conversation is going to go, but really be intentional about listening to understand rather than listening to respond. And I think that's, a lesson that we can all learn. But it's definitely forced me to learn just doing this show. So yeah, that was a good one.
Well said. I remember that one vividly.
Yeah,
I do. And we talked about a lot. We were talking about all of these situations. And here's what I think a good lesson is it's, no matter what we're talking about, it's a three-dimensional person. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you're reading articles and you're doing things. We always imagine a person as just this two-dimensional caricature.
Yeah.
Right? Oh, and they probably think this and they probably voted for that guy and they did this or they did that. And then you actually meet that person. Mm-hmm. That's really important. And that is what gives us a lot of perspective and why your show is great, because you get to meet these people. And that's the point of what we're all doing here together for our public affairs here in Tucson and trying to get you in the know. Because like I say, I'm trying to motivate people, whether it's to donate money, donate their time, just volunteer for their own self-help, recognize that loneliness is an epidemic that's crushing the nation, and the Surgeon General declared that. So if you're a lonely person, go volunteer and get involved. I know I have a lot of older friends. They have a tough time making friends. You go volunteer. You get involved. And that's a good way to do it. And getting involved in all these organizations and understanding how they work and meeting the people behind them has really given me a great perspective too. And I've learned a lot listening to your show and producing your show. And then getting some of the same perspective when I get to do this. Even I can quote you 2-3 times already from what you just said about, even right there, what did you say about like listening? Listening
to understand rather than listening to respond.
Yes. And that is something that many interviewers can be very guilty of. Like that person says something and they just jump right to the next question, right? On their paper. Zach. No, I'm just kidding. I'm going to take that. But that's what's really an important part of all this. And I hope that everyone can kind of feel that in our shows. I know that I feel it when I'm listening to you guys. And I'm often very surprised at how funny, personable the guests are, right? Because it's Tucson.
Yeah.
So you got to realize that really, no matter who's behind any organization, it's just some fun Tucsonan.
Yeah.
And whether they moved here a couple years ago, we absorb them real quick.
Yeah, we do.
That's the thing, and everybody does. So I really do like the fact that you stayed around, stuck around. We talked about this. Got to kick off 2025 with yet again hanging out with the business of.
Woo.
Because today we made friends with Melissa Rociano. What is your title?
Marketing and Communications Manager at the Tucson Metro Chamber.
That's right. And Zach Yentzer, what's his title?
VP, my boss, of Business Advocacy.
Yeah, he's not here now, so that's all right. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks, Frank.
This was Lifestyle Tucson. Bing bong bing, a quickie recap. I really enjoyed talking with the hosts of The Business Of, and they're going to be on in just a few minutes. Once I get through my quick recap, you can listen to them anytime on demand on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and also across all Arizona Lotus stations every single Sunday morning at 7:30 a.m. So I want to thank our new friends at The Business Of for joining me today. You've been listening to Lifestyle Tucson. If you're a nonprofit that would like to be on the show, email lifestyletucson@gmail.com. For more information about this program or to listen to something you may have missed, go to the Sunday Mornings page on klpx.com, kfma.com, mixfm.com, or espntucson.com. You can also subscribe on iTunes, Spotify, and YouTube, or wherever fine podcasts are in business. Follow on Facebook and Instagram at Lifestyle Tucson, because I'm your BFF, your best Frank forever, Frank Powers. Toot toot Tucson. I love you the most.